Hello folks, welcome to the Edupedia world, and I am Abhinay Gupta. Today again we'll continue with the topic, the appointment and qualification of directors. Right? So in the immediately preceding lecture, we had covered the topic of section 169, the removal of directors, and that too by the shareholders. So we'll have a very brief recap of the entire section, section 169, so that in the lecture today we are able to understand and cover all the questions that have appeared in the previous examination. And I would tell you that this is one of the most important topic from this lecture. You have been asked from this entire chapter actually. You have been asked questions a lot many times in the previous years. That is around 10 to 12 times in the previous 10-15 years. Right, so you can understand it is either consecutive, it is either always there in the paper, or at least on the alternate examinations. Right, so out of 15-17 examinations, you have had this question for approximately 12 times. So you can understand how important this section is, right? So what we know is that the members would send a special notice to the company if they want a director to be removed, and that the limitation on the number of members is that they should be holding either more than 1% of the voting power or at least 5 lakhs of the paid up share capital, right? Then the company would forward the same notice to the director that yes, Mr. You are about to be removed, like the shareholders have proposed your removal from the seat, from the board, right? Then what would the director do? The director would send a written representation to the company, right? And that would be, and he would also request to circulate that written representation to all the members who will be present in the meeting to vote. Right? In the written representation, he will give all the facts and he would give his opinion and his point of view and he'll make it clear for the shareholders to understand and then decide as to what would be their course of action, right? So the company would first check the written representation. They would read it out and check whether or not that written representation is defamatory for the company. That means whether or not it is spoiling the name of the company. Has the director said anything that would cause the name of the company to be defamed, right? So if there is nothing so, like if the written representation is fair and clear, then they would state the fact of the written representation in the notice and also attach the copy of written representation with the notice that they're sending for inviting the shareholders to the general meeting, right? And then if the director has sent the written representation on time, but due to some problem the company was not able to send it to the shareholders, or there is a delay, right, and they had sent the notice already to the shareholders, then what would they do is they would read out that written representation in the meeting, right? Because they are not able to circulate it, so the members are not able to read it. So before the members cast their vote for or against this director, the written representation would be read out so that the people know as to the opinion and the viewpoint of the director too. But in case if there is something defamatory, right, in that written representation, something that forms disrepute to the company, that brings disrepute to the company, then the copy of written representation would not be sent and nothing for it should be mentioned in the notice too. And the director would bear the company's cost which is incurred to make an application to the company law board, right? And then it would also not be read out in the meeting, okay? So it would just be kept at the backstage. We don't want it in front. We don't want anybody to know it. We don't want anybody to hear it because it contains defamatory statements and defamatory information for the company, right? Then what happens? The meeting is conducted and the shareholders will vote. And if an ordinary resolution is passed to remove the director, then he would vacate the office, right? And he would not be reappointed. But if the ordinary resolution is not passed, he would continue in his position as a director, right, in the exact position where he is, right, and he would continue with the same duties, same responsibilities, and the same assets and liabilities would be vested upon him, right? And if he vacates, the vacancy that is caused in his position would be filled up in the same general meeting, right? And the new director would hold office for the remaining tenure of the vacating director. That is very important to know. That if Mr. X is removed and Mr. X had to serve for more 7 months, then Mr. Y, who is appointed in his position in that AGM, or sorry, in that general meeting, will continue the office for 7 more months. And then he'll have to vacate because he has taken the position of the going director, the director who is removed, of the retiring director, not retiring, the vacating director actually. right? But the director who is forced to vacate the office by the shareholders over here would receive the termination compensation for the damage as per the terms of appointment that has been agreed by the company when the director was appointed. And there's one little point that you should remember, and that can be a question on examination too, that if the vacancy is not filled in the same general meeting, then what are the consequences? If the vacancy is not filled, in general terms, what happens is the meeting is adjourned and over there it is filled up. But here that will not be the case. If that vacancy is not filled up by the member in the general meeting, that vacancy will be filled up by the board. Right? So the board will be entitled to fill that vacancy as if it was a casual vacancy in the office of the director. Right? As per section 161 subsection 4. But there is one thing that the directors have to keep in mind, that they cannot reappoint the director whom the shareholders have asked to vacate the office. Instead of him, they can appoint anybody to occupy the space to fill up the casual vacancy. Right? We will consider it to be casual vacancy only if the members in the general meeting are not able to fill up the vacancy. Right? So we'll move on to the questions now. The first we'll touch to the question about CA final May 2004. Right? So although we know that they have been asked 12-13 questions in the past, but again, one more thing that you should be knowing, I would play a fair game with you, since I have created great importance of this topic, right? But I'll also inform you that in the past 10-15 attempts, you haven't been asked questions on this. So the 10-12 questions that you have been asked, that was in the span of actually a little time, but that was a session, that was a trend that occurred somewhere between 1995 to 2007. After that, till 2015, so far you have not been asked question on this topic. So you never know, the same trend would start again, and this could be an important topic. Because why I call this topic important is not because of the occurrence in the examinations, whatever be the time in that duration, or is it coming lately. The point is that the institute has questions. There are points in this topic on which questions can be framed. So that is why I consider this topic to be important. Right? So if there are a number of questions that can be framed on this topic, so you can have any one of them in your examinations. So you should not leave these kind of topics on which are left open for the institute to ask questions on. Right? So we'll continue with CA final May 2004. So the context or the crux of the question that was put forward by the institute in May 2004 attempt was about the notice given by the shareholders. Right? First of all, what they wanted to know is whether the shareholder is eligible to give notice, and secondly, whether a notice without any reason for removing the director is valid. So we have already covered those sections. So we know that the member would be eligible only if he holds, or if there are more than one, they hold together more than 1% of the voting power of the company, or minimum of rupees 5 lakh of paid up share capital. So in the question, yeah, the director did hold 5 lakh share capital, so he was eligible. Right? But we're not focusing on the question. The point is, you should know the context where the questions can be put up on. Context on which the questions can be put up. Right? So the member's eligibility can be an area for question. The second thing is whether a reason for the notice is important. The answer is no. If there is no reason mentioned for removal of director, that does not invalidate the special notice. Right? That we have already seen. Right? So these are the two areas you have seen where the questions can be put, and what are the solutions, you know, and you already know how to write the answers. So I think you will be able to write the answers, but what I think is we should discuss the point for notice, because that is not specifically given in section 169. So what are the provisions that you are going to write in the answer? Right? We know that first we have to write the provisions of some section, and then what the question asks. We explain it, and then we give our conclusion. So what are the provisions that you will be writing? Because there is nothing mentioned in 169. Right? So you will refer to section 102. We had discussed it while we were discussing the topic in the previous lecture, that as per 102, the directors have to attach a statement along with the notice, so that the members are aware as to what are the agendas of the meeting and what is it that will be taken up. and what is it on which they have to vote or they have to discuss. So that is important for the board, right, to attach a statement with all the reasons and all the topics to be covered up in the meeting, right, details. But section 102 in nowhere mentions that the member has to do the same while they are sending the notice. So neither section 102 says anything about it, neither section 169. So we would consider that it is not compulsory to attach a statement of reason or to give a reason along with the special notice for calling the extraordinary general meeting, right? Next, we will take up the question that was asked in CA Final November 1995 and November 1997. You had almost the same topic discussed in both the questions, right? So the second area where the institute had asked a question was that the article of association of a private company, right? They have specified private company just to confuse you, right? That prohibits the removal of a life director. That means the director whom you have appointed for life. And the article says that that director who has been appointed for life cannot be removed, right? So whether section 169 will be able to remove that director, right? That means whether section 169 would overrule the article. The answer is yes. The act would always overrule the article. No article or agreement, right, can overrule the act. If act says something is to be done, you cannot surpass that or keep it aside by the help of an agreement or specifying a provision in the article. That is not in your hand. If the act says something is to be done, then it is to be done, right? So for this, basically you will have to refer to section 6 of Companies Act 2013. You'll have to specify. So it's better you understand and you know that there is a section 6. We have not discussed it yet, right? So that is a point to be noted on your end, that section 6 says that the act will have an overriding effect on the clauses contained in the memorandum, contained in the article, contained in any agreement between the company and director or anybody, right, if they are not in conformity with the provisions of the act. And if they say the same things as the act says, then there is no conflict at all. But if there is a conflict, the act would prevail. This is given in section 6. So if you remember the section, if you quote it down in your examination, you secure marks over there. Because they know that if you are specifying section 6, that means you are going right in your answer. Right? So over here, a provision in the article of private company, public company, whatever, we don't care about it. If there is a provision in the article that overrules or that is not in conformity with the act, then that provision will not prevail. That means the act would always prevail, right? So that is how you answer that question. Just remember section 6 of Companies Act 2013. And if you want to refer to a case study for this, you could refer to the case study of Tarlok Chand Khanna versus Rajkumar Kapoor. Right over there, this was a situation where they contended that the article does not permit the removal of the director. So the shareholders can't remove the director. But the court says no, the shareholders will be able to remove director as per the provisions of section 6 if something is not in conformity with the act. That means if the memorandum, article or the agreement is not in conformity with the act, they would not sustain. In CA Final December 1996, they gave you a straight provision that there was a member holding 20% of the paid up share capital and he has requested for an extraordinary general meeting for removal of director. Right? So you have to just analyze the situation and say whether that is possible. So you mentioned the provision first that he has to hold minimum 1% of the voting power or 5 lakh of the shares. So since he is holding 20% of the paid up share capital, means he is holding the voting power too. That is more than 1%. So he will at any point of time be eligible to call a meeting, an extraordinary general meeting to remove the director. So that is the only thing that you have to specify, but you'll have to write it down in a format. You'll have to write it down in the proper way, and you know what the proper way is, right? In 1997 again, you were asked the same question, that the article prohibits the removal of a permanent director. Whether he can be removed? Yes, he can be removed. We have already seen that we will follow the provisions of section 6. Remember this section 6. This can be used throughout your Companies Act. In any chapter, wherever you have such a question where the memorandum, article, agreement, anything is trying to overrule the act, you will straight away bring in section 6 and say that is not correct. You cannot do that. The act or those provisions of the memorandum, article or agreement or whatever it is, they would prevail only when they are in consistency with the act. If they are inconsistent, they won't prevail. Now, in CA final June 1996 and June 1998, the institute checked you on another topic that is nowhere mentioned in the Act, that will not be mentioned in the Act. But that is what you should understand when you're studying law, when you're studying Companies Act. Right? Over there they asked you that a civil court wants to remove a director. Somebody has filed a petition in the civil court, and the civil court wants to apply his jurisdiction to remove the director from the company. Can he do so? Can it do so? Does the civil court have such a jurisdiction? The answer would be no. Because if there is something that is expressly provided in the Act, right? If Companies Act 2013 expressly gives a power to the shareholders to remove the directors of a company, then you should go by those provisions only. You cannot file a petition to the civil court to remove a director. That will be overruled. If there is something for which there is nothing expressly provided in the Act, then you may approach the civil court, because you have no alternative. But over here, the Companies Act 2013, as per section 169, has given you specific directions as to how you would get a director removed from his position. Then again in CA final November 2001, you were asked a question that there were two directors running the company and they did not declare dividend for the past couple of years, like 10-20 years, right? And some shareholders were frustrated with this and they wanted to pass a resolution for removal of those directors in the annual general meeting. So can they do so? Can they? That is the question. Yes, they can. Because over here, nowhere they're overriding the Act. That is a provision given to them. If they don't like the director, they can do so. They don't have to even give a explanatory statement along with the notice that why they want to remove the director. They'll call the meeting and they'll put an agenda that we want to remove this director, and then they will put that resolution for vote, and if they are able to attain an ordinary resolution, the director will have to vacate office no matter what. Right? So that is the power given to the shareholders. So it's better they declare the dividend, keeping it for 20 years. You're not declaring dividend for the past 20 years. Obviously no shareholder would want that. They are investing in the company for dividend or for growth, that is on both ways. So maybe they are happy with the growth, but some of them, so they'll seek for majority. If majority is not happy with the growth and they want dividend, that means they want dividend. And if you're not paying that, you should be leaving the office. We want somebody else who would do that, right? So that could be done very easily. You know how to write the answers now. Then finally, breaking the scenario, you have one question that was asked recently in CA final November 2014, right? So they have come back to the trend. Be careful, right? And that was a general procedure asked over there again. There was nothing very specific. Next, in November 2006, you were asked a question, right, based on which you were supposed to inform, or you were supposed to say whether a managing director can be removed. So section 169, let me make it very clear with you again, empowers the member to remove any director, whether it's a rotational, non-rotational director, managing director, whole-time director, non-executive director, any director can be removed following the provisions of section 169. So don't be confused with whatever name they give you in the questions. Then you had a question in November 2007, again asking you for the procedure for removal. And then finally you had one more question, that is the resolution. You were asked to write a resolution for removal of a director in November 2006. So you know how to write a resolution. First you write the subject, removal of a managing director, then passing authority, that is the general meeting, and the nature of resolution, it is an ordinary resolution. And you know you have to start the resolution by resolved, the word resolved. So you'll write resolve that pursuant to the provisions of section 169, right, and other applicable provision if there is any so and so director wants to be removed. Number 1, right? Then you will write that further resolve that subject to the provisions of section 202 of the Companies Act 2013 and other applicable provision, if any, right, he would be paid compensation according to the clauses of agreement. So you'll write the amount of compensation, which is X amount, the clause, whichever clause you want to refer, right, and the agreement dated this, you'll have to give the details, and then you will write this provision. Then you write further resolve that the secretary of the company has certain authority, certain responsibilities to fulfill, they would do that. That is filing necessary documents with the registrar, change in the register, director's register and stuff. So the secretary would do that. So remember, when you're writing a resolution, the secretary's part is very important, the further resolve, and the resolve is obviously the question. right? What you need to actually put your mind is on the middle paragraph, that is further resolved. What you need to write over there, that is where you don't have an option. That is where you have to apply your brain and bring out the other provisions and bring out the procedure. But even if you know nothing, you know that okay, for the resolved position, you know what is to be written, that is given in the question, and for the further resolved last paragraph, you know it is the responsibility of the company secretary, right? So if you don't know the answer at any point of time when you are asked to write a resolution, instead of leaving the question blank, at least try and attempt these things, right? These are the basic little tricks that you need to apply while you are writing your answers, right? So that will be the end of the lecture today. We'll continue with the other topics in the upcoming lectures. So until then, this is Abhinay Gupta signing off. Thank you.